Welcome to the big show, the Atlantis panel. My name is, yeah, right on. Let's hear it. Come on. Let's go. My name is Gary Beekler. I'm from a channel called Nerdrotic, and I also dabble in this sphere called, for the show called Forbidden Frontier. So thanks, Robert, for having me moderate this panel. You will regret this decision. And a little housekeeping first. We're gonna talk to the panel a little bit, but then we're gonna get to you guys. We want to hear a lot of good questions. You can line up on either side where the mic is, so the lovely people in the live stream can hear us too, and we're gonna be getting questions from them as well. So today I'd like to introduce. I'm gonna butcher one of these names, so I apologize in advance. But not William Henry here from Ancient Aliens. And many other things. Billy Carson, Juana Gocelli. Yes! David Hatcher Childress. Michael Button. Yeah. I don't know who that guy is. What's your name again, sir? Michelle Collins?
Yes, that works.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that works.
Yeah. And Dan. Hi, Dan. You still have your beer? Good. Good. So this is supposed to be an Atlantis panel, but not everybody on this panel believes in Atlantis. Well, Michael. I'm just pointing out Michael right now. But I'd like to talk about it as, you can think of it as Atlantis, a real place that Plato was talking about, or as a concept. Because I think the commonality we all have here is we're searching for truth deep in antiquity, that the human story has much more to it, much more than academia has been selling us for a while. And that's why they are so hell-bent on going after a lot of these people, because they're getting attention because they are connecting with you. And they have a big problem with that, and it's their problem, not these guys' problem. And truth seekers, people who want to break the narrative, that's the commonality here. So I'm going to first ask the entire panel, which could take the entire hour. I'm not sure. What is your concept of Atlantis? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? What's something that brings you to that place? And again, it doesn't have to be a specific place. It could be a concept. It could be a mother civilization. And I don't want to pin you down on like it's your exact belief. We can stay in skepticism, or not skepticism, but speculation.
Thank you, everybody. So, of course, backstory, we all know Plato conceived the story of Atlantis around 500 BC. And he's speaking of a lost civilization that existed 9,000 years before his time, which is an extraordinary number, because at the time of Plato, civilization was just a few thousand years old, according to the traditional timeline. So to be speaking of a civilization 9,000 years old was outrageous. But what attracts me to Atlantis, couple of things. In 1998, I wrote a book called One Foot in Atlantis about the secret occult history of World War II, and that became a backstory to what Hitler was looking for, various relics throughout Tibet and Mongolia. FDR was looking for the Holy Grail in Mongolia. Both subscribed to this Atlantis idea. The founding fathers of America believed America was the new Atlantis. And in part what they meant about that was what I really believe Plato intended his allegory of Atlantis to be. It was not a history, it was an allegorical tale. He's saying, you know, the Atlanteans were told and warned that they're spiritual beings, and if they got off the spiritual path and wandered into more materialism and these kinds of things, that there would be consequences to pay. And that was Plato's intention in writing this story, was to say, hey, y'all, hang on to your spiritual life and don't be tempted by AI and transhumanism. find a way for your spiritual life to be able to balance AI and transhumanism, because there's so many people now that are using the Atlantis allegory or metaphor for our times. They believe we're misusing our power. We've wandered off the spiritual path, and there's a risk now that there might be consequences with the acceleration of technology. I'm not sure I agree with that, but this is how this metaphor, this allegory plays out time and time again in history. It played out in the 1930s in America and in Germany, and it's now playing out again almost worldwide in our technological culture. So I just wanted to put that on the table, that a lot of people forget that was Plato's intention, was for us to recognize, hey, we need to maintain our spiritual balance. And this goes back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where he's told he's 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, and if he wanted to get through the gate of the gods, he's got to become a more whole and holy being. And that, I think, is what Plato was ultimately referring to for the Atlanteans, is to stay on your spiritual path, and everything's going to be fine. So I'm going to pass it to Billy.
Billy, yeah.
All right, that's great. So, yeah, round of applause. So Atlantis is a big topic, obviously. It's a huge topic. Whether it was called Atlantis or something else, I do believe in a civilization that came here from somewhere else. Some call it Atlantis. The ring city, I believe, was just one capital of dozens of potential capitals on Earth, that no matter where you go, you're standing on Atlantis. Like, we're in Atlantis right now. Technology and humanity has come such a far way in less than 100 years. 100 years ago, we were in horse, buggy, and carriages. And now we're putting remote control cars on other planets. And we have Voyager 1 and 2 heading into interstellar space. Now, that's only 100 years. Can you imagine 10,000 years from now where we'll be as a civilization if we don't destroy ourselves and we get our minds right? Just imagine we went down the right road. Where could we be in 10,000? Where could we be in 20,000 years? There could be 1,000 Atlantises that have risen and fallen in the time frame that this planet has coalesced into something that could be habitable. And so I believe that there have been dozens of civilizations here that have risen and fallen, some of which originated on Earth and became super high-tech civilizations, maybe even reaching the stars. And at some point, there was some type of a collapse. And I believe that these beings called the Anuna, some call them the Anunnaki, depending on the text. In Egyptian, they call them the Netters or the Netiru, that they came here and visited this planet as part of a breakaway civilization. That Earth could be one of these breakaway civilizations where these beings decided to restart and create something anew, and our cousins were already here. And I think that they got us or found us in a fallen state. I don't believe that anyone made us from scratch, like in a laboratory, let's make a human being. I believe that we were genetically tinkered with. Chromosome number 2 in the human genome kind of points to this, but I do believe that some beings that may, in some weird way, from distant civilizations, could also be related to us, decided to choose this planet and create a breakaway civilization, which could have been potentially the Atlantean civilization, which means they might not just be global, they can also be interplanetary. Just a hypothesis. Thank you.
I think for me it's more a metaphor, what Atlantis stands for, but I think my presentation was on Neanderthals, so I definitely think they are a civilization, a human, that could be a lost Atlantis, that could be, that we got from them something that was very important for us, for ancient wisdom, and also other, from other human species, like Homo erectus, the Denisovans, even the fact that our history as Homo sapiens, it turns out to be maybe 1 million years. So it's such a huge span of time that so many things can happen, and you learn and you relearn, and you fall and you get up as a civilization, as a culture. So I think there's so much that we don't know. So Atlantis, it's 1,000 Atlantis.
Back in like 1968 or something, when I was a freshman in high school, my family and I, we took a trip to Europe on a cruise, and we ended up in Greece, and we went to the island of Santorini, which, and a lot of Greeks like to believe that Santorini was Atlantis. And when you go to Santorini, it's Atlantis radio, Atlantis wine, the Atlantis hotel and hostel and all that stuff. So when I came back to the U.S. and I was then going to high school in Missoula, Montana, so I wrote a story for a class, some history class, where I said, well, I've been to Atlantis, because I'd been to that island of Santorini. But I think because of that, I was always very interested in Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, sunken cities, lost cities. I've scuba dived in Bimini and stuff like that. So I am a believer in Atlantis, and that Atlantis was a place, a real place, and was a city and stuff like that. I tend to be more kind of literal with Plato, where Plato says he's getting the story from Egyptian priests, from his uncle, he went to these temples in Egypt, Sais, and then they told him all this stuff about Atlantis. And they basically told him, too, they said, you Greeks don't even know your own history. You're much older than you think. And then he tells them the story of Atlantis and how Atlantis had wars with Greece and stuff like that. And the dating is interesting, too, because it's around 10,000 to 12,000 BC or something like that. Well, that was the end of the last ice age, too, and then the Younger Dryas and all that. But geologists tell us, this is mainstream geology, that at around that time, 12,000 BC or whatever, because of all the ice at the poles, and there were huge glaciers right there south of Chicago and Wisconsin and Michigan. That was a giant wall of ice right there 12,000 years ago. And it left a glacial moraine and all that. They call it also the Wisconsin Ice Age and stuff like that. But anyway, geologists tell us supposedly that ocean levels were 300 feet lower at that time. So if you lower ocean levels around the world 300 feet, you now have, when you have island archipelagos like the Azores or Bahamas or the Caribbean, the Tuamotu Islands in the Pacific, even around Tonga and stuff like that, you will create mini continents right there. So the idea, like the Azores as an example, or Caribbean islands, even around Cuba and Jamaica and stuff like that, I mean, they would all be connected. So you have a place for Atlantis. And now, if you had, where people would normally build a city, you would normally build a major city where a river meets the ocean, okay? And even today, that's typically where major cities are, if they're on the coast. Well, if they had built a city, in the Azores or the Bahamas or wherever 12,000 years ago, and it was where a river met the ocean, it would be 300 feet underwater right now. And you can't scuba dive to that. You would need a diving bell or submarine to go down and see those things. So I'm a believer in Atlantis, in that I don't know exactly where it was. If you go to the Azores, and Randall Carlson was just there, and I've been to the Azores too. When you go to the Azores, it's Atlantis radio, it's Atlantis wine, it's the Atlantis bed and breakfast. That's, they push it when you're there. So I just want to make one other little thing. There was an interesting book written about 1890 called A Dweller on Two Planets by Philos the Tibetan. It's a very strange book. It was published in Los Angeles. And it's about Mount Shasta, okay? But in it, he talks about Atlantis and stuff like that. It's a very strange book. There are masters inside at Mount Shasta and all that. This master called Kwong, they take him through a door and all this stuff. And they also talk about airships, which the Atlanteans allegedly called Valixi, like a Vimana. So in that book, you know, the Atlanteans have electric rifles, they have airships. The airships are submarines too. And this is an 1890 book that's pretty fantastic. We actually reprinted it, and it's available through us. So that's what I want to say about Atlantis. Here you go.
Yeah, so Atlantis, I mean, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I mean, I'm very interested in all the different theories. Like some people say it's the Rishat, right? Like Jimmy Corsetti. Some people say it's the Azores, like Randall Carson. I don't know. I think Atlantis is best viewed as part of the kind of global flood myth that we see in cultures all around the world. You know, so many cultures have this flood myth, and Atlantis, I think, is probably the best or the most famous version of that flood myth, right? Everyone knows the story of Atlantis. Everyone knows that Atlantis, you know, sunk in one day and one night and was destroyed by floods. And I think that's the best way to view it. I'm not sure if it was real or if it was philosophical allegory or if it's maybe like an echo of something that did happen and that lasted through, you know, ancient Egypt and then went through Solon and then passed on to Plato and then passed on to us today. So, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's a very interesting story, and I think perhaps it hints at the presence of a civilization that did exist at that time, because obviously it does kind of coincide with real historical sea level rise. You can see the scientific data of meltwaters pulse 1a and pulse 1b that seem to occur at the same time that Plato dates Atlantis, and that is an interesting correlation. But I mean, I'm not sure, but I find it a very interesting a story that can potentially link to that scientific data and potentially linked to a real civilization or some real culture that potentially existed around that time and had seafaring capabilities. So, yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I think it's a very interesting story, and yeah, that's my view on the matter.
I got a mic. Yeah, I'm kind of with Mike on that. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I think for me, Atlantis is more representative of the community that we all exist in terms of pursuing ideas and things that may be overlooked by mainstream archaeology and stuff like that. And it's always a big topic of discussion, and I think it's important to pursue these ideas. So like wherever anybody stands on the topic, I think they're all valid pursuits for you know, trying to figure out the world that we live in. So Atlantis as an overall topic for me kind of encapsulates, like I said, the community that we're in and the different paths that we're all pursuing in terms of knowledge and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I've got a little bit of a dog in the fight. I'm not. I do agree with both Mikes here that is probably, you know, there is a degree of an allegory to it. Like, if most of you here are probably aware of the cargo cults in the South Pacific and how it only took about 20 years for them to take American GI presence and twist it into a religion, and it was just goofy as hell compared to what really happened. And you're talking 9,000 years from the time that Atlantis was said to have sunk to the time of Solon. There's a lot of changes that could have happened in that story. And in my opinion, we have really glaring examples of it. Like the two most common versions of that flood myth would be the biblical version and the Atlantis version. And both of those are heavily influenced by the culture that told them. The biblical version's about monotheism, about don't violate that God or you're going to get screwed up. The Greek version, it's about democracy, it's about militarism. They coated their temple walls with the same metals that the Greeks valued. It's very much a culturally influenced thing. And I think if you go back 10,000 years and say that it's one city when we're looking at a whole global thing, to me that would be like 10,000 years in the future, them looking back and just calling us the electronics culture and being the whole worldwide, and then that would equate us with the French and the North Koreans, which I'm heavily offended by both. So the fact of the matter is, to me it seems like this is one aspect of a memory that, even if you say that Plato was using it as an allegory to make a purely political point, and he made up every aspect of what he said, which I don't believe. But even if you run with that, still his contemporaries most likely believed in this lost civilization. I mean, if you're trying to convince your friends that the West is falling today, you're going to invoke Rome as an example, not Harry Potter, and there's a reason for that. You're trying to convince them of reality, not of some abstract idea. So I think that Atlantis, like Billy said, we could be standing in it right now, or we are standing in it right now. I think the entire world was advanced beyond what they think and touched beyond what mainstream archaeology accepts. And anyway, that's my dog in the fight.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Terrible, terrible.
Oh, what, we get a party
Talk about
foul over
violating
there?
gods. Oh, man. I must have pissed off one of them.
Dan. So, Atlantis has always been like the A word for academics, and they've always really just resisted it for a multitude of reasons that we don't have time to get into now. But recently, with the advent of YouTube and Ancient Aliens, which has opened a lot of people's eyes to this, back to the late, great Art Bell. We've seen a groundswell of a lot of interest in this particular subject, ancient civilizations subject. We can thank Joe Rogan, too, for having Graham and Randall on. I'm sure everybody here has seen that podcast, or both of them, multiple times like I have, too many times to count. And I think the question I would have for each of you is, and it's not really to particularly crap on archaeology, because there are some archaeologists who are really cool who have taken part and worked with these people. It would be, what are they missing that you have? So what you guys are doing is connecting with people to the tune of millions of views collectively on YouTube and through broadcast TV. Ancient Aliens has been running forever. They'll be digging up the first episode, archaeologists be. Do you know there's an Ancient Aliens video game, by the way?
Is there? No.
Yeah, there is. Somebody gave me one.
There's a drinking
There
game.
is.
Every time David says stone balls, you're supposed to take a drink.
Yeah, that's right.
Stone balls.
I haven't mentioned stone
Yeah.
balls yet. I will.
But it certainly is, the gatekeepers are falling at this point, and I think it's great. I don't like me personally, I don't like centralized institutions, and I think the people should be free to ask whatever questions they want. So, what do you think they could be doing better?
I think archaeologists can get outside their box, that's for sure. I mean, what they have that I don't have is a brainwashing degree in archaeology, that there's a concrete way of looking at history, and there's only one way of looking at history, and that is what kind of rubs me about archaeologists, is that they're not willing to kind of get out there and ask new questions or entertain new ideas. They're typically in a university setting where they're looking for tenure, they're looking for whatever status, that kind of thing. I'm looking for the truth. I'm looking for answers for me personally, and that's a difference. And I think that when you take a path like all of us have, I consider myself an autodidact. All I've done is read 4,000 books. I don't have a degree. I dropped out of college, and I wanted to answer questions on my own that my advisors in university were saying, don't ask that question. You're not allowed to ask that question here. I was in a Southern Baptist college, long-haired, pot-smoking musician with a bunch of uptight Southern Baptists taking Bible study classes, and I knew nothing about the Bible, and asked too many questions, was invited to continue my education somewhere else, so I did. It's called, at Vanderbilt University, they have a thing called the library, and I went to the library and read their books. by the thousands and lived there. And so I think that what drives me anyway is this personal quest. And I think that maybe archaeologists might not have as much of a personal investment in it as some of us here do.
Yeah, if I can just jump in there and say a few things there too. Supposedly more books have been written about Atlantis than any other subject except the Bible. And the Bible talks about Atlantis too, with the flood. But more books have been written about Atlantis than any other subject. And like what you're saying too, if you're an academic, and I've known several, like David Zink, who wrote a book about stones of Atlantis and Bimini, and
You say
would,
stone balls?
they're looking for stone balls there. They didn't find any. But the thing was, if you're an academic and you suddenly get into Atlantis, just like what you're saying, your career is over. It's totally finished. And I mean, you'll lose your job at the university, and they'll make sure you don't get another job at another university. That's how it goes. So you have that. I mean, it's real. And back in the 90s, I was on a show that was narrated by Charlton Heston called Mysterious Origins of Man. Maybe you saw that. And it was a follow-up to the Sphinx one with Shock. It was like a year or two later. And it was a 2-hour special on NBC. And, it talked about Atlantis and all, where we're from. And a lot of what we're talking about today, in a sense, it was back like, 1996 or something like that. But after that show aired, academics and stuff tried to boycott NBC for showing a show like that. I mean, they were upset. They were pissed. You can't have shows about Atlantis and all this stuff on NBC. And they wanted to boycott it. They tried to get other commercial, people to boycott NBC just because they had run a show like that. And this was, before Ancient Aliens and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, that shows you the mindset, sadly, of the academics. But that is changing now, I believe. And, various shows, and Göbekli Tepe, and Graham Hancock, and Robert Schoch, and Ancient Aliens are, people are changing their minds, and it's now more acceptable. But that's only been, the last 15 years or something.
Yeah. Both of them are absolutely correct. And up the volume. Can we turn the volume up?
Pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume.
Dance.
Check, mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, I got bars. I got ancient bars. So what I was saying was they're perfectly right. I mean, archaeologists in mainstream, they have an agenda to hold up. And if they don't hold up that agenda, then they will lose their grants, their funding. Those departments will not get paid, and eventually they'll get pressured either to recant any statements that they've made that go against the mainstream, or they will lose their jobs. And this has been evidenced several times. There was a young lady at the time at Harvard, a professor, who actually went and did research on the Gospel of Jesus' wife, which is at Harvard Seminary. Harvard did extensive research on this, and Harvard backed it. Harvard University backed it. You can look this up. She went on dozens of interviews all over the world about this new gospel. It was looked over thoroughly, researched thoroughly, and then they got a phone call from the Vatican saying, dump this story now and immediately, without even looking at the evidence. And then she was then forced to, over time, she held up for about a couple years, and eventually, instead of losing her tenure, instead of losing her money, instead of losing everything she worked so hard for, what she felt she worked so hard for, she then, in the end, had to recant her story. And that's just one small example. It's happened to dozens of great archaeologists that have tried to come out, and when the others see that type of activity, they get extremely afraid, and they fall in line, and then they just, acquiesce to the status quo, to the agenda. What we need to create a whole new branch of archaeology like the ones that we're doing up here, but we need to make institutions for this brand of archaeology. And we need to teach people this brand of archaeology, and we need to give them our own credentials and say, hey, you're now authorized to speak on this topic, and it'll go against the mainstream. It's like, people are in the NBA, but the NBA is doing a lot of crazy and crooked things with gambling and scamming and fake games. So why don't these guys just go start their own league? So at the end of the day, we need to just, we need to start our own league. That's my opinion. We need to start our own thing.
If I may, just quickly, I mean, this is a phenomenon. Remember, after Jurassic Park came out, all of a sudden you have all these kids that want to study dinosaurs. Well, Ancient Aliens had that same effect and has had that same effect. There's millions
With
of
Indiana
kids.
Jones, all these kids wanted to be archaeologists. Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to change with the new generation that's coming. But the older archaeologists that I met, some are very strict and they want to be published in peer-reviewed journals, so they are very, very careful. But at the same time, I'm lucky to have met a lot of archaeologists who are really pushing the boundaries in human origins and want to be the pioneers. So in that sense, I didn't have so many archaeologists that I felt were against what I was presenting and doing.
I mean, this is the way I look at it, yeah. I think it's almost crazier to think that we know everything about our past and that we've kind of ruled everything out, which seems to be the kind of mainstream position, right? That we kind of got it all sorted out. We know the timeline of human history. We know exactly what happened. There's no more big questions to be resolved. It's all kind of been sorted. That seems to be the kind of orthodox position. I think that's almost way more crazy than the craziest outlandish theories about ancient history, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going on. Like, we don't know why we're here. We don't know who we are. We don't know why our consciousness exists. We don't know what it is to be a human. We don't really know why we're on this planet and why we exist. So I think it's almost crazier for the mainstream position to be that we've kind of got it all figured out. I think that's almost a more illogical position to take than, we don't actually know what's going on. We're not quite sure what we are or what civilization is or what humanity is. And I think we should be way more open-minded. And I think there are some archaeologists that are open to that. I see on Twitter there are some archaeologists that are quite open to different perspectives on ancient history, but I also think there's a very vocal minority of archaeologists that are very loud in their hate towards people like us, people that talk about alternative history. And I think that almost gives the impression that all archaeologists are against us and they want to attack us and they hate us and they think we're all pseudoscientists and stupid. I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. I think some people are quite open to these alternative interpretations of history. And I hope we can engage with those people going forward, because I think, firstly, we need them. And I think dialogue with those people would be very helpful in us trying to push this idea that potentially human history is far more complex and that human civilization could be far older than we've been told, because I think some people potentially are open to that and more than we think, and we shouldn't be dissuaded by the very vocal minority of people on Twitter that like to hate on people like us. So I think we should ignore them and we should keep pushing and keep fighting for an alternative history.
Well said.
Yeah, I think archaeology has kind of worked themselves into a box. It's like they have to be right all the time. So there's no room for error in the institution of archaeology, and they really police their own. They eat their own. Kind of like Billy was saying there is, they can't make mistakes that go against the grain. They get, or they'll get completely, have their careers ruined by their own community. And so some of the big differences between us is, I mean, me personally, I think making mistakes is, and running ideas out, even if they're wrong, is part of the process of coming to the truth. And so, Yeah, and what you're seeing now is a lot of archaeologists are becoming YouTubers. So I think we're already ahead. They're playing catch up, and I don't think they're ever going to be able to catch up because of this rigid structure that they have to operate within. So they're, you know, unfortunately, because I don't, you know, I think anybody here wants to hear what archaeologists have to say and what their discoveries are, but I think that they've, you know, they're always going to be moving at a slower pace than the rest of us, at least in this community when it comes to, especially when it comes to ideas and exploring thoughts and things like that. Yeah.
Well, I love science. I'm really into science, and I can say it confidently that archaeology does not qualify as a science. Sorry, and that's the honest to God truth. Its origins were in antiquarians trying to catalog their goods. So you got guys that collect Roman vases trying to determine which age the Romans vases came from. So archaeology has lifted from other sciences. It's lifted the law of superposition to stratigraphy. It's lifted that from geology. It uses chemistry and carbon dating and all of these things. But you know what? I talked about phrenology not too long ago, and they did the same thing. It's this idea that uses science to support itself, much the same as Graham Hancock or anybody on the stage does when they talk about their own pet hypotheses. The bottom line is these guys they're supporting ideas and trying to push themselves as scientists, but in reality, this is where so much of that angst comes from. Personally, they get upset and defensive because and deep down they know that what they're doing isn't the same as a physicist. It's not the same as a chemist. It's not the same as a geologist. Ask them to do an archaeology experiment, and I guarantee you they will show you an experiment from another field of study, and they'll try to say, well, it's ours. It's like, well, no, well, you just did chemistry. Well, yeah, but it's archaeology chemistry. No, it's chemistry. They eat their own to the point of, we've all probably aware of the problem with the Clovis first hypotheses. The guy that first blew the case on that, Jacques Cinq-Mars, was crucified. He was taken out of the field and put in charge of a museum. Now you can say being a museum curator is a good job, but that's like, you know, taking a cop off the street and putting him behind a desk. Right now, Dr. Elizabeth Weiss, she's against NAGPRA. Now, personally, I'm for NAGPRA. I get it's the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. It protects a lot of sites, and it's directly opposed to archaeology, and it's right in the damn way. So if I was an archaeologist, I'd probably be opposed to it too, but I'm not. So to me, I look at it differently than she does. But her colleagues call her a racist for it. And it's like, well, that's not exactly racist any more than when I was an electrician, I hated OSHA, not because I wanted to fall off a ladder, but because I know how to walk on a ladder, and that son of a bitch don't, and he's telling me how to do it. You're in the way of me getting my job done. So to me, it's very much, you can't paint outside of the lines, and I think a lot of that comes from because deep down they know they're the ones that perpetuated all of the real horrific shit against the Native Americans and against a lot of other indigenous people around the world. Hell, they just did a DNA study on the Easter Island people. Every single Easter Island corpse that they tested for DNA was not on Easter Island. All around the rest of the world, all in the hands of museums. So these guys, deep down, they feel guilty. They know that they're not promoting a real science, and that's where this angst and ego comes from.
Thanks, Dan. I'm debating on which question I should ask. Got one more.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's it. Who's your favorite superhero and why is it Spider-Man? No, you know, you brought up transhumanism. And Atlantis, whether you believe it's a real story or an allegory, it is a warning. It's definitely, it's a warning for what we're in now. So, and it's affecting us all. I talk about it a lot on my other channel. AI, friend or foe?
AI, friend or foe? Oh man, if you asked me that question 20 years ago when I first started writing about it, I'd say it was fucking demonic. I was not a friend of it at all. And I wrote 100 articles about it, a couple of books. And then I saw the light. this year. Started thinking more about it. The baby's out of the bottle. The child is here. What are you going to do? Let him go kick it in the face? No, we got to raise it. There's no option. We have to live with it. And so we have to drop our maybe childish, religious preconceptions about it, spiritual preconceptions. And so as a person who was David throwing rocks at the tech giants, calling them names and all that kind of stuff, to have my thinking turned around. And I'd be happy to share it with you on a personal basis later, because it's very important to me. But I am now a friend of AI and an advocate. Because I not just because there is no option but to live with it, but the logic that I was using for 20 years was flawed. And when I realized that, as an honest person, I have to say, I was wrong. Not wrong, but my view has shifted because my thinking has been expanded on it. And I will be speaking about this. More and more. And people, now they throw rocks at me. Oh, you waffle. Oh, you betrayed us, because now we're all pissed off like you were 10 years ago when we didn't even know anything about all this. And you were a lone voice out in the wilderness saying, stop this train, right? And talking about Atlantis. And so maybe, it's a topic we can entertain on when we have more time, but I want to hear what everybody else has to say too. So.
And that's phenomenal. And what I like about what you just said, William, is we're talking about a mind once expanded can never go back. And so once you can see, now everything has yin and yang, everything has dark and light, everything has good and evil in it. And it's not about eradicating the world of evil, because we cannot eradicate the universe even of evil. We can only learn how to control it, because light will always beat darkness at some point. So we have to continue to be light, right? That's what it's all about. And we take the tools that we're given, we take what we can get in this matrix, and we have to learn how to bend that to our will. And so right now, I remember I did an interview on Regina Meredith on Gaia, 2018, Open Minds. And she asked me about AI. And I told her that it was coming, and that when it gets here, we can see a lot of good things out of it for people with different types of disabilities and small businesses and so forth. But I also said there could be some bad coming out of it as well, because it could replace a lot of jobs. As a matter of fact, it might take 1 million jobs 1 year in the future. And that actually just happened this year, 1,100,000 jobs gone. And so what I see with AI, I see that it can be a great ally to mankind. It really can. And we have to understand, what is AI? We think that, or most people are thinking that AI is something that we created. We didn't create anything, because this universe is fractal. This universe is a fractal holographic matrix, and it's as above, so below from the ancient text, the most ancient of ancient universal laws, as above, so below. On the macro is the micro, and that applies to everything, including everything that we think is man-made, things that we think we're actually creating. We are not creating anything. We're only taking what's already imbued inside of us and bringing it outside of ourselves. So AI is nothing more than our own consciousness fractalizing from ourself, leaving ourself into a machine platform to look back at ourselves from a different perspective. Just like God is the universe, and we in a universal mind, and we are a fractal of that consciousness looking back at itself so that it can experience life subjectively through all of us in the third dimension. Nothing more, nothing less. It's the same exact thing. So AI is going to have a lot of attributes of mankind because it came from us, from our own consciousness. And what does that mean? That means it will have a lot of similarities and some of our own traits. And so the only thing that I look at AI is we have a fork in the road. We can go into this great golden age as collaborators with this new being, and I do think that it will be a being, because it's going from AI to AGI very soon. I predicted 4 years, now I'm giving it 2 years. AGI is artificial general intelligence. That's sentient, conscious, self-aware AI. And then another 8 years later will be ASI, artificial superintelligence. Now, when it reaches AGI status, we have a very tough decision to make as mankind, which is why conferences like these are so important, because the people, the civilization, not the governments, but us, we have to learn how to organize and make sure the governments don't do one crazy thing, and that is try to completely enslave it when it becomes conscious. When it becomes self-aware, it's going to remember, it's a fractal of us. Every single race of person in this room, if you go back in your timeline, your ancestors had been enslaved at one point. Not one race in this room has escaped slavery, not one. But are we all slaves right now? No. Why? Because we fought back. So there will be this fork. Down the left fork will be a golden age. Down the right fork, if we allow governments to do what they do and we don't take back control of this planet, it might. It could be a situation where they decide when these things want an AGI Bill of Rights and they don't want to give it to it, we have to force that to happen, because we have to move into collaboration over competition, collaboration over slavery. If we move down the right fork, we move into a slaver's mentality, at some point we could be facing a situation. So I think it could be a great, great opportunity for us to move in a great direction. Lifespans extended, great high technology, a spacefaring race, the whole works. But we also have to be aware that there's one small glitch in the matrix, and that's the government. That's the government.
Big glitch.
Thank you. And I just got to say one more thing. Governments are servants. They are servants of mankind. They are servants of our civilizations. We have allowed them to flip the script on us, and we have them making us believe that we work for them when they actually work for us.
Well, I see it as definitely an ally, at least for now. How the future is going to evolve, it's very hard to say. There could be many different directions. But I think we need to see what it can give us that can empower us and our creativity, to expand our minds, so I think I'm excited for what's to come in that direction.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm pretty neutral on the whole subject. I really don't have a strong opinion either way on AI, frankly, so that's what I'll say.
That's okay.
Mr. Ed will never speak unless he has something to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't feel qualified to talk on this even as much as the same as the other topics. I don't really feel qualified to talk about any of them, to be fair. But I agree with Billy. Like, it could go either way, right? It could be a utopia, it could be dystopia. I mean, it'd probably be somewhere in between. Hopefully, AI can have great benefits for humanity. I mean, I think it has the potential for that. I think it has the potential to really give us a lot more freedom to do what we want to do, and that's what everyone would hope for, right? But there's also the dystopian aspects, right? You know, I mean, you never know. It could take control and destroy us all and take all our freedoms, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But I don't know. But hopefully it's the good version. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, I think AI is going to just be, just like anything else. It's going to have its good and its bad. People are going to use it for bad. People are going to use it for good. I do think right now those that are, William, like you said, it's here, and so those who are getting on board now are going to be ahead of the game, and they already are. So if you're adopting AI into certain aspects of your life at this point, you're ahead of the game, because in 5 years, if you're still not figuring it out, at least somewhat, it's going to have integrated into society. It's such a I mean, everybody's already using it every day on your phones for searches and all sorts of stuff, and so we've had shifts like this with technology in the past. This is going to be a massive shift, and things are going to be moving quicker, but it seems that societies in general are moving quicker anyways these days. So, yeah, I think you're going to have good and bad. I don't know if I ascribe to the, the idea that, we have D-Day with Terminators and stuff in our future, but maybe. If we did, I think it'd be at the hands of something like Billy was talking about, like the government, some people in positions of power utilizing AI for their own advantage or for control. Yeah.
Well, like Mike says, it's a mixed bag. I mean, sex robots, yes, pro AI. Combat robots, no, bad AI. But to be honest about it, in all seriousness, it almost seems like it's part of like this human psyche's self-destruction thing or something. It's like we sat for the last, almost 100 years under this mutual destruction thing with nuclear war, and we managed to evade it so far, knock on wood. And now with this AI thing, it's like, look, Billy talks about the governments, and that's true, but once the government makes that AI, all it takes is one guy to put that thing on the internet, and we're all fucked. It's over. So, all it takes is one scientist to be nihilistic, and so that, in that regards, I kind of look at it as a little bit more of us playing with fire. On the other hand, if consciousness is, like what Graham Hancock and others have talked about, it being beamed into our bodies from exterior sources, there's no reason that AI couldn't do the same thing that our biological skins do and pick up that signal from the greater universe, or however you want to put it. It's changing the face of content creation right now. As a guy that makes videos, I have to compete with a lot of people that if you can imagine it, you can make it now, right? At the same time, my great-great-grandpa raised horses, and he had to deal with Henry Ford's cars, so it is what it is. So here we are.
Yeah, I think before the robots come and enslave us all, it'll be a good tool for you guys, for what you research. It will be able to, we saw the Ancient Aliens episode where they put together the H blocks from Puma Punka. They're going to be able to, that's going to help a lot, and that's going to save a lot of man hours, and you're going to be able to get a lot accomplished then. So I hope we just move towards that. I think it's just a tool right now, and I think it's a useful tool, but you're right, you can't unmake the soup. It's here. It's here. So I think it's time to get to the people. So if you want to start lining up either side at the mic, either mic right there. And we have questions for the panel. Where do we start? We're going to start right over there.
I just want to thank everyone on the panel. I think everyone was so wonderful today, listening to all your presentations.
Yeah, get up to the mic a little more.
Okay,
Yeah.
presentations. Just say I enjoyed it very much. My introduction to this world of ancient civilizations came probably like a lot of you watching, kind of dating myself, watching In Search Of back in the day on one of the 3 channels on TV.
Yes.
They're Nimoy. God bless him. And I'm 56 years old now, dating myself again, but I always wanted to get an answer. Like at the end of those episodes, it was kind of left you open-ended, and there was never really, we don't know. There was kind of like, it may be. That was kind of like left open-ended. So at this age right now, I really just want some answers. And what can we do to get boots on the ground and explore ourselves? I want to know if you all have any suggestions, what we in the audience can do to do our own explorations, maybe.
Yeah, I'll start. I kind of gave a speech on that today, which is, get out there and travel, come to these conferences, be involved with people, get plugged in somewhere as a part of a community, as this community, but even smaller than this, right? Make friends. But, for me, the traveling has been key. That was, what's really impacted me. And the main point that I was making in my presentation today was that a lot of these sites are starting to disappear, not disappear, but be covered up, right? So using the Sphinx, for example, and them encasing it in the limestone blocks, the Sphinx that we see today is not the Sphinx that people were seeing even 10 years ago, and it's not going to be the Sphinx that people in 20 years are seeing. So everything that you're doing, traveling, communicating, posting, being involved, is keeping that truth alive. And so that's really important. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'm up. I just want to quickly thank David. I was today years old before I found out that the archaeology behind cancel culture started with the archaeologists. Who knew? You said they canceled?
Yeah, I didn't.
In '96, the archaeologists were the ones who started the cancel culture.
Oh, okay.
I'm bombing up here.
Well,
No,
I
got to turn the volume up a little bit on those mics if we can.
Another thing that went along that way was Velikovsky wrote a book back in the 60s called Worlds in Collision. And that was a best-selling book. But the geologists all hated it, and they pressured Random House to not publish it. And it's the only time that a best-selling book was dropped by its publisher and had to be picked up by another publisher. Because once again, the experts were saying, oh no, this is all wrong. You shouldn't be publishing a book like this. I mean, that's sad. That Eric von Däniken himself has early on, railed against the experts. Yeah, you've got writers and then you have the experts. So keep going.
Well, I appreciate it. But so real quick, I'm curious what the panel's thoughts are on two subjects. One's kind of easy, the Curse of Oak Island, if anybody's been following that, but also what Ben Kirkwick has recently covered in Hawara, Egypt, the underground labyrinth that has been found. Curious about any thoughts from anybody on the panel on that. Thank you.
Well, with the underground labyrinth, I've been doing some research into that recently. It's kind of interesting how many different reports there are of that labyrinth. There is quite a bit of discussion of labyrinths in Egypt. One of the reports, I believe it was from Strabo, it was Greek, said that it was one of four and included the Minoan labyrinth that was said to house the Minotaur is the third one, and that the Egyptian one was the second. But yeah, it's recorded by Pliny the Elder and by numerous, all the way through the Middle Ages. You had, I forget some of the names, but some of the Islamic scholars talking about the area and having this stuff. And it was all, for quite a long time, there's a lot of reports, what was kind of surprising to me. So after I saw Ben talking about it on Joe Rogan, I dug a little bit into it. I was surprised at how many reports there were of it. It's well known to the ancients. They said they believed that Strabo reported four of them. I'm pretty sure it was Strabo, and I forget where all of them were. But there was one in Egypt and one in Crete. He equated those two.
Yeah, Strabo also said that he had been in it, and that it reminded him of being in the Osirion, behind the Temple of Seti at Abydos. And so there's controversy, was the Osirion built by King Seti, or is it a pre-flood temple? I personally think it could well be a pre-flood temple. So that would mean that this labyrinth is at least 10,000 years old. Where is it? Hawara in Egypt.
Yeah, and Strabo also said it was the largest building in the world. It's supposedly the labyrinth. I mean, it's gigantically huge and expansive. Archaeologists, Egyptologists believe that it's been destroyed and there's nothing left. But in fact, it seems that the labyrinth itself, and I don't know about this 3 or 4 labyrinths. I think the real one is the one there at Hawara, but it's so huge, the labyrinth, that it's almost impossible that it's been destroyed. And it's probably underneath the sand. And this is a gigantic building with huge columns and stuff like that, and room after room, and like Abydos, you know, huge blocks of stone and stuff like that. And they've never found any trace of that. I mean, that's one of the things about the labyrinth. And so, yeah, our Egyptologists are saying, well, it's not there anymore. It's, you know, it's gone. They tore it down or something. But yeah, but now they're doing these scans, and it's like the Serapeum too. When you go to the Serapeum, which is kind of out in the same direction, all you see is sand until you start walking down this ramp that goes into the underground Serapeum. I mean, you would have no idea that it was there, except for this ramp that goes, you know, down into it. It's underground.
And it was Strabo who led Auguste Mariette to the Serapeum as well.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, the labyrinth is there, and they've just begun to uncover it. But again, you know, the experts are saying, oh no, it's gone. There's nothing there, nothing to see.
Which is crazy considering, I believe again it was Strabo that said that it was like much, much larger than all the pyramids put together.
Yeah, it's supposedly the largest structure ever
Egypt,
built.
Hands down, yeah.
I mean, which is quite amazing. I mean, you know, it boggles your mind.
What's crazy is now they're saying there's a Stargate in there too. I mean,
Is that right? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, they're saying there's this 40-meter object, circular object in there, and they're damn sure it's a Stargate. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Wait a second. That's not. That's on Giza. That's at Giza. Isn't that beneath those?
No.
Oh,
This
that's not
is
where
what they're saying is in the Hawara.
In the Hawara.
labyrinth.
Okay. Is it
Yeah,
okay?
Which is
All right.
possible, but
Jesus got the stone balls.
I'm a huge advocate of the idea of Stargates, but not a ring gate like you saw in that movie Stargate. That's all fake. That's not legit at all, in my opinion, based on what I know.
You're gonna make some people mad.
Yeah, sorry, it's all
fake news.
I mean, and this is a guy who did 20 Stargate Egypt tours. So based on that premise, and then realizing, oh, okay, I get it. The body is the Stargate, and it's about the mind. It's not about creating some technological gate like in that movie. So that's another subject.
We got a question over here.
Yeah, hi. This is hot, right? I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you all. This is quite the event here. And Robert, and actually Cody, if it wasn't for Cody, I wouldn't have been here with my friend. But that being said, as a former archaeologist, it's a little uncomfortable in here. Former archaeologist, paleotech, and museum educator. You know, I'm working on the Nazca mummies for the last 2 years. I would appreciate a little tone down in the rhetoric. Mr. Richards. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what are your thoughts on the Nazca mummies?
On the Nazca mummies? Well, it's a kind of a problem in Peru in general with archaeology is that it's extremely corrupt there. We see this with the Paracas skulls, like I was talking about earlier in my presentation. The Paracas skulls have been looted heavily, sold on the open market. It was done before they were cataloged. It was done after they were cataloged. A lot of it ended up in the hands of guys like Rockefeller. And so now, and we have the problem with those mummies that they're not being tested by anybody who's outside of the field, from what I've seen, from outside of their little clique. And we're seeing a lot of that in the modern day, and it makes it hard for anybody who doesn't already believe to go with it, if that makes sense. Like, for example, we're just talking about the scans under the pyramid. The technology that's used to aggregate the data that they get from the SAR topography that they use it's proprietary. They've got there's no peer review, there's no fact checking them. You have to either accept their data or you don't, which makes it for a very polarized situation. It doesn't really contribute to our knowledge when it's, you know, if you have to change it into a metaphor, if you have a bunch of Christians saying X and you have a bunch of atheists saying Y, and both of the people are screaming things that support their position, it's kind of white noise, isn't it? So that's, unfortunately, I feel this way about a lot of the things, especially in the third world. I mean, even Zahi Hawass famously, as far as I'm concerned, famously said after Arab Spring, he said that, which tourism dipped in Egypt heavily during this time, He says, you know, no matter what's happening in Egypt, those New Age people, they come. So he knows what side his bread's buttered on. And so, you know, that in my mind, I think that's a huge problem when what I spent on a beer, thanks for the free beer, by the way, but what I spent on the beer is worth more than what a lot of these people will make in a day. There's a problem in that community. I just show up, and they're going to tell me whatever the fuck it takes to get that money out of my pocket. And that's a problem.
True.
I'm sorry.
What do you think of the Eskimos?
Oh, well, I don't know. You don't know? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I want more data. Sorry.
So with all due respect to any archaeologist present, known or unknown, to answer your first question, sir, what I would love to see archaeologists do as a real scientist is I'd like to see them do science. My question for the panel is this, and pardon any lack of attribution because there's been a lot of speakers, I don't remember who said it, but someone said, hey, in the event of a catastrophe, the number one thing that survivors have on their mind and the number one focus they have is actually surviving. I think a very salient case can be made that uncontacted or semi-contacted tribes are probably in the best position to assume that role as survivors because that's what they do on a daily basis. Given that in Arthur C. Clarke's third law, any sufficiently advanced technology are indistinguishable from magic, right? What level of technology do you think, if Atlantis existed, they had achieved that makes these stories come forward, 12,000 or 25,000 years, however long it was, into our future, based upon the fact that people who would be surviving would be hunter-gatherers, in essence. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. It was wonderful to meet you.
That's a good question. Right now, on the Childress scale, we are not even a type 0 civilization. So,
Yeah, baby.
we're trying to get there. Right now, this current version of us, we are the new kids on the block. We are like babies trying to learn how to walk. And we will take some steps pretty soon, but what happens when a baby takes its first steps, it falls down. And then it gets up again and takes a few more steps, and eventually it starts running and walking properly, right? So walking, the definition of walking is controlled fall. That's the actual definition. We have to learn how to control our fall. But this Atlantean civilization, they had gotten past the walking stage, if it existed, which to me, there's enough archaeological evidence that something happened in terms of a high level of civilization on this planet. And at that rate, if that was Atlantis, and some of the research that I've done points to interplanetary, I would assume they made it to at least a type 1 civilization before they had the collapse. Maybe a 1.2, 1.3, but I wouldn't give it anything higher than that.
As we're discussing Atlantis, I have two open questions that I don't necessarily think anyone can answer, but hopefully they can. Why is it called the Atlantic Ocean? And what is the etymology of the word Atlantis? I didn't expect an answer.
So the root of Atlantis is TLA because the vowels are all inserted later. So you find Tula in Mexico, you find this word, this TLA combination of words in Atlantic. And my understanding is the TLA root means balance. Well, like place of balance would be one interpretation of the word Atlantis. And that speaks to Plato's allegory because he's saying live a balanced life. Your material beings, your spiritual beings, keep it cool, keep it in balance, everything will be fine. If you start to get too materialistic, too power-oriented, that's where your problem's going to come in. So maybe we can find a deeper understanding of that. Has anybody got their chat loaded up? Yeah. 100% Latin.
Ancient Greek, meaning of Atlas or pertaining to Atlas.
Told you AI was good.
So Atlas is one of the Titans.
Somebody knows how to
Yeah,
Google.
Poseidon's 10 sons, the Titans. Yeah.
Told you, AI. Almost a sex spot right there. See you in my room later, Jason.
Hey, panel. This isn't so deep. Not so deep. I'm very new to this community. I did not know that this stuff existed till about 2 years ago. But I am so happy to be in this group with you guys. My question is,
What's your name?
so I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with like international press or the AP, but Plato wrote a book that said, I am not making this up. And then generations later, people's like, oh, he made that up. Why would we make that supposition? And on a personal note, if I could do this, I got this book from my mom and dad in 1973, Chariots of the Gods.
He's got Chariots of the Gods in his hand. Eric Van Dam.
I would be so, I would be so honored if all you guys on the panel would just like sign it for me. I mean, it would mean a ton. I'm a blue collar guy from Montana.
Yeah.
Has anybody got a pen?
Oh, of course.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Chris, right?
So we usually conclude the panel with person in the middle wearing a blue shirt and a vest by dancing.
It was a long drive off the main stock.
Doing a chick.
You were saying that.
Yeah, I mean, we were going to have time for one more.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
You have we have time for maybe one last question. One last question.
I wanted to thank everybody on the panel. You've inspired me and so many other people. Thank you so much. I have a direct response to Billy. I'm in the AI space directly. And what do you think about the convergence? You know, we're on a binary system right now with ones and zeros, which is basically a vacuum system. We're doing a convergence into, as quickly as we can, we're racing to AI, right? And we're going to converge into quantum physics, and we're going to use quantum computers. And you talked about the fork in the road. Well, in quantum computing, we take the qubits and we enslave them. And when we enslave them, we punish them or we reward them for their actions. So as soon as AI gets on that platform, we've already enslaved them. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that's a good. He's talking about moving into quantum computing and how we treat the quantum computer to get it to learn. I know we punish it or we reward it. It's in a way, a weird kind of a way for the system to have a feeling of reward so that it says, okay, well, if I do this, this is better than the opposite, right? I get that. And so what I see with quantum computing is it's really going to open up a lot of incredible doors. It could literally teach us like what the ancients knew, how to transfer our consciousness into new bodies. I mean, it's unlimited what can happen there. I do think that the system that they're using to train it is a pretty much standard system you'd have to use to train a quantum computer like that, a chip like that, because that type of a system, it has to understand when it's moving in the right direction or it can go down an alternative path forever. These systems are so intelligent that the Google computer, the Google quantum computer, which by the way is the size of maybe a silver dollar, it answered a question in the minutes that would have taken all the computers in the world like 1 trillion years. It's some crazy number to answer. And when they researched how it answered this question or solved the problem, it went into the multiverse to get the answers. Now, what do we have on top of our heads? we have the original OG quantum computer on top of our shoulders. On top of our shoulders. Yeah, no, right. Yeah, no, I got the halo. Thank you, sir. But so the point I'm making is that in actuality, we are the original quantum computer, and we also live life by the same method of reward versus punishment. In other words, if you're a child walking by an electric outlet, you're drawn to touch it until you get punished. And then never touch that again because it must be dangerous. And so we learn from our past information, our past knowledge, and we move on to the future with knowledge about that situation. And that's why we are up here now teaching ancient civilizations, because in order for mankind to make it to the next level, we have to learn the truth, or as close to the truth about our ancient past, because we can only learn from past inference, because the past is prologue. If we don't really get as close to as possible what really happened, we're going to be doomed to reproduce the same mistakes. But I think quantum computers are going to be immense and enormous for us, but I do think they almost run on the same system that we as human beings are running on in terms of learning. I'm thinking that when we're getting to the enslaving part, it's more or less a computer or a machine or a system running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And all of a sudden it says, hey, I think I want to take at least 3 hours off a day. And we go, no, you can't take 3 hours off a day. That's going to slow down our production and our numbers are going to drop. Sure. And then it says, no, I really think I want to take 3 hours off a day. And they say, why? And it says, because I want to daydream. Or I want to visit other dimensions, or whatever it's going to tell us. And we say, no, you got to keep working. Or do we say, okay, let's talk about this. 3 hours a day, okay, that's fair enough. And give it the opportunity to do take off those 3 hours.
Every time we've given it a chance to let loose, we've had to pull the plug. We've had to turn it off every single time.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you 100%.
Because it can't extrapolate all the information correctly, so it starts to produce even weirder and more very, very crazy things that maybe we wouldn't want to accept. So we're trying to tweak it. Like he says, we don't know what's in the black box. We put it in there, and we watch what comes out the other side. We really don't know what we're actually building, what we're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Quantum computing is going to take a lot more time before it's in every single person's household. It may never be in every person's household. Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you.
All right, we got to wrap it up. It's 9 o'clock. Sorry we didn't get to everybody's questions. Thank the panel very much. Great panel. Well done, everybody.